we're talking to Laura Veirs on the First Cut today, and welcome.
Thank you for having me.
We're really excited to talk to you. I'm excited to talk to you. You're one of my favorite singer-songwriters.
Thank you.
I love the collaborations you've done too. I think your collab with Nico Case and Katie Lang's one of my favorites.
Thank you.
And now you've got a new album coming out in the fall called My Echo. And on the First Cut, I thought we better ask you about the first single, which you've just released, called "Burn Too Bright." Are you?
Yeah.
I understand that you had a couple of really special collaborators on the video to the single.
Yeah, so the single is a song dedicated to Richard Swift, who was a wonderful producer and musician living in the Northwest, who passed away a couple of years ago. And I was just thinking about people who seem to burn too bright for this world. Like, it just seems like the world is too intense for them, and they are too intense for the world, and the match doesn't work. And a lot of these and they end up being creative people a lot of times, and really bright people who burn out too fast and too soon. And he did die of alcoholism not too long ago, and it was just very sad for the whole community. At the same time, he brought so much joy and beauty to the world, and that will live on through his music. And so I was just pondering all of that in terms of the lyrics, and it took me many versions of the song to get it right. I think I wrote 15 different styles of music for it, but eventually at the very end it came together. So I was glad that this could be the first song out as a single, because it was the last one to be recorded. And the video was really fun to conceptualize. I was walking my dog and just checking out sidewalk chalk from kids in a neighborhood, thinking like, oh wow, I wonder if anyone's done a lyric video with sidewalk chalk. And I didn't research it to be sure. I don't actually know if anyone else has, but I have now. And it was pretty fun to conceptualize like different artistic elements of it. Like, we had bright things like moths, or butterflies. We had lightning bolts. We had the lyrics coming out in these blocky letters that I was writing. And then my nanny, Lori, who's also a great artist, did a lot of the drawings. We had like sprawling waves, like Japanese style waves. We had bright petals of cherry blossoms floating off, and lightning bolts coming out of hands, and just like kind of inspired by folk art from different countries, like Japanese and Mexican folk art was kind of like a little bit of the influence on the art that we did. But it ended up being this huge piece of art that we made over 8 hours on a church parking lot, filled the whole parking lot. And at the end of the video, my kids also helped. Tennessee and Oz helped me, and they were 7 and they were 7 and 10 at the time. And they helped over that 8-hour period with a lot of the coloring in of the art. And then at the end, you get this drone view, because this friend of mine named Lance Banks, who's done a lot of great videos over the years, had a drone. He did all of the editing also of the video, but at the end, you get this reveal of this huge drawing that we did. And it was really fun. It was really cool.
I watched the video before we connected here, and that was kind of breathtaking to see that shot right at the end. It was really cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. So "Burn Too Bright" is the single, and "My Echo" is the album that is out this fall. And I want to ask you about some other firsts, some personal firsts.
Mm-hmm.
If we can just I'll just shoot you the questions.
Yeah.
And we'll just keep them coming here. What's the first album that you fell in love with?
I think the first one I really fell in love with was Michael Jackson's Thriller. My dad went on a business trip, and he was a professor, so he didn't really go on business trips. I just remember he went on a trip and came home and brought us that cassette. And I don't know the year that came out. It was 80 something, early 80s. And I think the entire world's mind was blown, and mine was too.
You learned to do the dance?
Yes, I did. And I remember my brother and I had a boombox, and I took the boombox down to the park with my friends, and we just blasted it as loud as we could and just jumped off picnic tables for like hours. It got a lot of energy out.
Your dad had an ulterior motive.
Exactly. Get them out of the house. I can totally relate to that right now, especially.
That was a mind-blowing album at the time, for sure. Um, Tell us about this song that you first learned to play when you were learning guitar, learning to write.
I don't remember the very first one, but I do recall my brother teaching me Blackbird very early on, which is a hard song, actually. Like Blackbird by the Beatles is a pretty tricky finger picking song, but I guess I had gotten far enough into be worth the trouble of him showing it to me. And that's the one I first remember really getting into. Like, oh wow, okay, I'm like gonna play this 100 million times to get it right. And so that was a good one to learn on. Actually, it is a beautiful song.
Was your brother older?
Yeah, he's 3 years older. He had a guitar. My dad had guitars lying around the house. My dad was like a sort of novice play around the house type fun musician, like guitar and piano. And actually the guitar that was around our house growing up is a 60s Goya nylon string classical guitar that I started playing for fun in high school. But and now it's my favorite guitar and I write all my songs on it. So if you watch my Instagram, you'll see it all the time.
So what was the first song you wrote on that guitar?
What's that?
What was the first song you wrote on that guitar?
I don't know, because I've written like thousands of songs, but I do remember writing John Henry Lives on that guitar, which is a song from my first proper album, 2001, called The Triumphs and Travails of Orphan May. And I changed the tuning on that one, and that's something I've done on and off over the years. But I definitely remember writing that song on my parents' couch. I think I must have been home from college on a holiday break. But it's weird how certain songs I can remember writing, and then most of them I don't recall at all. But certain ones, like there's just this like timestamp in my mind of how it felt to write the song. But since I've written thousands, probably thousands, because I've written usually write like 100 per record. So maybe not thousands, but certainly hundreds and hundreds of songs. Certain ones I remember writing, and most of them I don't. But
that's amazing. That I've never heard anyone say that as part of their process, to write 100 songs before you whittle it down to the 10 to 12 or so. It'll be.
Yeah, I know. I feel like I probably have like a mental illness. but I don't know. It's just, I think actually I'm going to try to stop that, because like I started doing that on July Flame. I remember I wrote 70 songs for July Flame, and they're not all distinct songs. Like, I mean, they're all distinct songs, but they don't all have distinctive lyrics. So like I might write the same version of the same lyrics throughout 5 songs, but it's like the 5th version of music that makes the cut. So it's not like I wrote 5 totally different songs. It's like totally different music, but the same lyrics. So, I mean, that's a caveat, but yeah, it is my process to write, a lot of different songs per album, but I've already written a lot of songs for my next album after my Echo. And I'm trying not to write too many, because I feel like it's like I almost feel like I became lost in unable to judge whether a song was done or good enough, and the bar went too high or something, and that's why I kept writing. But now I'm like, okay, I've written 40 or 45 for the next one, and I'm like, okay, I think, and I have my A pile in my Dropbox. It's in the A list, which is the top list. There's 16. I think that's enough to make a record. I don't think I need to write another 100 songs to get 5 more good ones that would then add to the 16 that are already there. I think I'm good. And then I can write another one.
Well, I know if I have too many options, I overwhelm myself sometimes.
Yeah.
So it seems like it would be that way if you had too many options of material.
Yes. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, tell us about, it doesn't have to be the first heartache song you wrote, but it could be. But, we all have those first breakups or first heartaches, and there's that first heartache song that you might hear on the radio that you really connect to, or the first one that you wrote. I want to ask you about that.
Let's see. I would say, well, it's odd to say this because it's probably the song called Through December, which is on that first album. It's actually technically my second album, but it's still one of the songs that people request and that I sing. And so it's over 20, I guess it's 20 years old. And it's very melancholy. It's about this person who is mourning the loss of something. We don't know exactly what it is. I think in the song, people would interpret it to be a dog. And it's very much about heartbreak. But the thing is, like, that song came out of nowhere. And like, I wrote it in like as long as it takes to play it. And it's enduring. And it's about nothing. Like, it is about heartbreak, but it's not about a dog. It's like, it's just about my feelings. But yeah, Through December it's my first heartbreak song, but it's not even about any specific heartbreak. It's just about heartbreak.
So you can't really pinpoint anything that inspired this song. It just kind of came to you.
Yeah.
That's wild. Well, you said some people interpret it as being about a dog. Do you have pets? Did you have a first pet that you loved a lot?
Yes. I do have I have my first dog as an adult currently. I had lots of pets growing up. My brother had kind of like a zoo in his room, like snakes and spiders, like actual tarantulas and pet lizards and like a big fish. And like, he currently has tons of animals in his house with his kids in Seattle still. But I wasn't like that into pets. I did have a really cute cat named Garfield. But now as an adult, I haven't had many pets, and my children were insisting on getting a dog, and they are now 7 and 10. And for Christmas this year, I decided it was the right thing for them as children of divorce to get a dog, even though I didn't want a dog. I thought, I can't deal with more responsibility, but I decided to go for it, and we got this dog named Graham. So he's my first dog as an adult, and now I'm obsessed with Graham, and I'm like thinking Graham's the bee's knees. Like the best thing that ever walked. He's this tiny little we don't know, we haven't gotten a DNA test, and he was a stray, so we don't really know his background, but we think he's about 2, and he's a little dog. He's part Dachshund, part Chihuahua, part Terrier, we think. And he's very sweet. He's awesome with kids. He's very loving. He sleeps with whoever will want to sleep with him, which is basically everyone's fighting for him every night. And he's just very much like a therapy dog. He just has this very zen way about him. Everybody loves him. He loves everybody. It's been amazing to me because I had forgotten that dogs can do that. Like, I grew up with dogs, but since I haven't had my own, as an adult, I just forgot that they can be so helpful for the mental health of the family. Mm-hmm. And that's been awesome in quarantine. It's been awesome in divorce. And then the divorce quarantine combination is not easy on anyone, especially the children. Mm-hmm. And they've really helped. The dog has really helped them and me.
Well, I have a similar, but not totally unrelated story about my dog as well, because I divorced after many, many years of marriage, and my daughter's 25. When we divorced, she was just out of high school, and she lived with me for a couple of years and saw a dog that one of my friends was fostering online. It's like, oh, Mom, we have to have So, of course, we get the dog, and I really had to think about it. I said, she's going to move out soon. I have to be prepared to take care of this dog if she doesn't take the dog with her.
Yeah.
So she moved out. She couldn't find a place to rent that would allow dogs, so Mom has the dog. But I have fallen in love with this little guy. He's, like you. I think they give you an unconditional love that you don't always get from human beings.
That's for damn sure. Yeah, it's way less complicated.
Yeah. And,
what's your dog's name?
Rudy.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah, we got him on Valentine's Day, so we named him Rudolph Valentino.
Oh, very distinguished.
Hmm. I asked Emily if she was familiar with the old silent movie star. They called him the Latin lover, Rudy Valentino.
Uh-huh. There you
No,
go.
so she went online and looked. She's like, "Oh, that's kind of cool. Let's name him Rudy."
That's really cute. There's a really great book by Myra Kallman about dogs. Have you seen that?
Uh-uh.
She's a really neat artist living in New York, and Maira is her first name, Kallman, Kalman, and it's these are beautiful paintings of dogs and how dogs have influenced her work and been in her life in a more like kind of tangential way, moving into her work. And she does like children's book illustration and writing and all kinds of different illustrative work. And she has dogs, and she writes about what it is like to have a dog, and the kind of philosophical guidance they can give us just by being these silent partners. It's really cool.
Well, see, I live alone now because my daughter moved out, and it's just me and Rudy. So you're right. He's been a wonderful companion during the pandemic, and
Yeah, it's great. And
I talk to him when there's no one else to talk to.
exactly. And I keep asking myself, why isn't Graham talking to me? Like, he should be saying something. Like, he feels like such a part of the family, and it feels sometimes weird to me that he doesn't actually speak.
In their own way, they speak to you. It's true.
Yeah, they do. They do.
So you've gone through the divorce, and you've got the therapy dog. So now the first heartache song that came to mind was kind of written for no particular reason. Do you see? Did you say the dog's name is Graham?
Mm-hmm.
Do you see Graham inspiring a song anytime soon?
It's interesting because he actually did get into a song because I've written a bunch of songs for this new next record, and yeah, he got in there in terms of his name came into a lyric. But also, I've been working with a poetry group, like just a really sort of off the cuff, just random couple of friends. We meet every once in a while to write and read poetry. He's made it into quite a few poems. And I'm interested in seeing whether that will continue or how that will continue. He's been almost like this portal to another world in poetry. It seems odd that a dog could do that, but
when you were first writing, when you were younger, did you write poetry and move into songwriting, or is this kind of coming later?
It's coming a bit later. I mean, yeah, I always kind of dabbled with poetry, but it never really stuck, and I never really took myself seriously or really read poetry seriously at all. But lately I've become more interested in it, and I still have sort of a somewhat shallow reading of poetry. Like, I don't believe myself to be like a deep reader of poetry yet, but I aspire to be a deeper reader, and I aspire to be a deeper writer. And I think poetry can help with that. But it's not easy. Like, it's not, a lot of times it's not an easy art form to access. But I am interested in it, and I know that if I get deeper into it and slow down and focus enough, I can be a better writer through being a deeper reader and like person who cares about poetry, because I mean, I don't really even know that many poets. I actually have a meeting with a poet friend tonight who's like a new friend who's actually a really accomplished poet. And I'm curious just to be around poets because I don't really know any. I mean, I know a lot of songwriters, and songwriters can be considered poets, but it's different. And I'm like trying to learn in myself what the line is there between poetry and songwriting. And I don't know, at this stage of my life, like, it's just interesting to me how, after having gone through the divorce from Tucker, who was my ex, who was the father of my children and musical producer for 20 years, like, I'm having this almost like musical reawakening because I'm detached from him in the musical realm. And now my musical self, my musical identity is solo. And so I'm exploring all these different realms of my musical self, and poetry is one of those realms. And singing is another one, writing songs is another one, guitar playing is another one, recording is another one, visual representation through music videos is another one. It's kind of cool. I feel like I'm having my own like renaissance in creativity right now.
I totally relate to that. You know, it's like if you've been married for a long time and you divorce, I just decided to take all that was good about that relationship with me, leave the rest behind, but it really did. It did really reinvigorate me. Like, I'm having so much fun living by myself and kind
That's
of
awesome.
rediscovering who I am.
That's great.
The same things happening for you. You have the addition of having children in the house, but
No, I definitely am feeling that way more and more. Like I did go on kind of a rampage of online dating for a while because I was really lonely and really, really upset and mourning the loss of my life as I knew it and feeling like low self-esteem and all this stuff. And that lasted a few months. And then quarantine happened and I was like, well, I kind of was like going off the deep end anyway with all that dating. And I stopped. And now I'm like, more and more feeling like, wow, I just don't even want to do that. I just want to do my art. I want to be with my kids and raise them well in this very challenging environment with a school, online school, and like take care of the house and be with my friends a limited way because it's also limited right now. But like, I guess the silver lining for me of some of this, there's so many weird silver linings to quarantine, but like diving into my art, having the space to not have social obligations and not have to take care of another human, like in terms of a partnership. It feels so good to be on my own. And it took it took a year to get there in terms of not feeling desperate to get another partner, You
just do you, girl.
Yeah, you too.
I want to ask you, I'm kind of going back around to your brother because I get the feeling he was probably a pretty big influence on who you first discovered musically. Did you idolize the artist he idolized? Like, who was the first artist you really idolized?
Well, yes. I mean, he was listening to like the Cars and 80s bands. And then later he was listening to like the Grateful Dead, which I did get into. But he also had like somebody introduced me to Joni Mitchell early on, which was awesome. I remember really loving Blue and getting really into that record. And it's still one of my favorite records of all time.
That's my number
one. Yeah. It's just so like flawless from start to end. But like, I discovered a lot of music through him. But then when I went to college, I discovered like Riot Girl and the punk indie worlds. And that was very informative. That influenced how I built my career and my independent ethic, which still holds to this day in terms of having my own label and owning my own publishing and managing my own stuff and having a lot of creative control. But I remember the first record I discovered on my own was K.D. Lang's Ingenue. And I was living in Malaysia at the time. I took a gap year before Carleton College. And this was, I guess, 91. I don't know exactly the year that came out, but around that time. And I remember we lived in this rental house in Malaysia because my dad was teaching physics over there. And I was just along for the ride and was teaching English to kind of like make my way. But we had this rental house with a white marble floor. And I remember lying on the white marble floor because it was really hot in Malaysia, but the floor was cool. And just like lying on my stomach, looking at the album cover, just like, whoa, listening to the record, And then like, lo and behold, how many years later was it? 20 years later, I met her backstage at a benefit show, and then realized she knew my music. And then I didn't, of course, know that she knew any of my stuff. And then like I reached out to her because she was nice. She came and sang on Warp and Weft. And then a few months later, I got this email like, do you want to make a band? It's just crazy because that is the first record that I like really obsessed on. It's such a beautiful record.
It really is. I remember jokingly saying to friends around the Ingenue record that if I ever decided to change teams, it would be for K.D. Lang. She'd be the only woman that could.
I bet you're not the only one.
Change teams.
Yeah, she's pretty amazing.
She is. Well, I was told I had 25 minutes. I've gone a little over, so, but
That's okay. Yeah, we're
but
good.
thank you so much for spending some time with me.
Thank you,
And,
Stacy.
wish you great success in your personal life and with the new release.
Thank you very much. You too.
And I'm sure we'll talk again.
Okay, take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.